Welcome to the PGN Podcast.
With this podcast, we're looking to normalise the conversation around flooding, what happens behind the scenes, lifting the curtains, and the mystery that could sometimes come into play when you're either involved with flooding or trying to protect your home or business. We're talking to some experts within the industry and relaying some of the experiences we've heard from some communities around the region.
Hopefully, after our series, you'll have a bit more information to help yourself and others in an emergency where flooding is involved.
We have a diverse network of partners and friends, some of whom could not join us in person. This is a bonus episode where we catch up with some of them virtually.
So welcome back to the PGN Podcast. We are going to be talking about how nature could potentially help us in our battle of flood management there. So looking outside of where the receptor is and sometimes more towards the source. I'm pleased to have with us Alex Fraser, who's also a member of SciWem. So hello, Alex.
Thank you very much, Carl. Yeah, glad to join you.
What are nature-based solutions? Could you give a bit of context on that, please?
I think nature-based solutions are slightly different for each person, if I'm honest, when they interpret them and have their own definition. For me, nature-based solutions are addressing problems that we see day to day, week to week, month to month, and how we adapt and deliver them in a nature positive and a nature first way, rather than looking immediately to our sort of artificial measures, the artificial solutions that we have in place. An example might be, rather than looking at putting a fence in, can we not use a hedge as a really translatable option for everyone?
That's a key element. I mean, obviously, a lot of hedgerows are engineered historically, I guess, they were put there for a purpose in a straight line for agriculture's sake, but they do have wider benefits than that initial purpose. So, what wider benefits does nature-based solutions have to, say, an engineered solution?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Nature-based solutions produce a lot more than the solution itself, almost by accident. We deliver, and when we put in nature and deliver with nature, we're not looking and thinking, oh, well, that's going to deliver X, Y, Z. We don't have a long list of it's going to deliver carbon sequestration, it's going to deliver us flood risk management benefits, it's going to deliver sort of field boundaries and containment. We don't plan for all of those things to be ticked off at once, but those are the byproducts of nature being used to address our problems. Delivering with a sustainable drainage system such as a swale or a pond, the solution is flood storage. It's to store that water for us. But actually it provides really important biodiversity, habitats for protected species. It provides urban cooling. It provides amenity space for people, which a couple of years ago during COVID we'd have all been desperate for a pond nearby that we could go and have a walk around and see something other than the wife or the kids in the room next to us. Giving that access to good quality green space and nature spaces is hugely important. But that's a byproduct of nature-based solutions. It's not the solution. It's not the thing. It all happens by accident as part of this much more rounded outcome that nature provides. We're a very poor synthesis of it.
Yeah, and I think when we're talking nature-based solutions, for the listeners, they might think of something very rural here. And in essence, the first time I was engaging with yourself, Alex, you were working on the Belford Natural Flood Management Scheme in Northumberland. Yep. How has nature-based solutions evolved from natural flood management, and how can it be applied in, say, an urban area, not just a rural area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you say, the early involvement we had was around sort of nature-based solutions, and specifically the sort of sub-discipline which was natural flood management, where we're looking at deploying sort of those nature-based solutions in a rural environment. So it's ponds, it's swales to carry that water around the landscape. It's reintroducing natural woody debris in those streams, and a lot of those solutions feel very, very, very rural because we don't look and think, oh, we should have these things in our urban spaces. We've we've sanitised our urban spaces. A lot of our channels are very straight. We've got a wall either side, and if a kid was to draw a nice river now that lives in an urban setting, they're going to draw it as a rectangle, and that's not how rivers are. Not how rivers are meant to be. If we go a little bit further north from where you are, Newcastle City Centre, you've got Brunton Park, and you've got the SUDS scheme that was delivered, a sustainable drainage system scheme that was delivered by sort of Northumbrian Water Environment Agency, Mott MacDonald and others, that provided and reintroduced a storage area that provided sort of amenity space. It's on the side of a golf course, so you can still play golf through the storage area quite happily. But it's there as a community asset for people to see, for people to engage with. It's not just something that's far flung and off in the distance and you off-site. It's something you can bring into every day. Rather than just having your sort of green strips where you might park the car, or the end of a road where you've got that green semicircle, which is just space that they didn't put a footpath down. Why isn't that a basin? Why isn't that delivering something more than just a patch of grass, which at the moment is just a liability for councils to go and mow? Could that be storage? Could that be a pond or positive nature area for people to see and engage with nature?
Yeah, and a key point of that as well is understanding that the source, the pathway and the receptor are different things. Managing it at source can reduce the impact along the pathway and where the flooding actually occurs as well. And sometimes you don't need to build a solution where the problem actually is as well.
Well, absolutely, and we see that. So that's a real key part of the Leeds flood alleviation scheme. You've got a continuous ribbon of water management from in the city through the sort of semi-natural floodplain through sort of Kirkstall up towards Horsforth. Yes, there's a lot of engineering there. But then upstream of that, we've incorporated natural flood management. So there's a lot of nature-based solutions that are being delivered across the air catchment, which will slow that water. But it doesn't just stop at where you get to the urban area. You can deploy those measures, such as floating wetlands, which we've got down through the centre of the River Aire near the train station. You can use sort of tree roots and natural vegetation to create those in-channel sort of geomorphological variants for species, for fish, for other sort of flora and fauna to inhabit those spaces and create channel diversity, which is really important to maintain sort of natural flow processes, movement of sediment through the system, rather than, let's say, water going straight off our rural areas, hitting a relatively flat section of river through the town and just dropping all its sediment in the middle of the town, which is the worst place for it, because you end up with choked water courses and water backing up.
Good examples there, but they're very large scale type interventions, aren't they? A combination of green and blue system, combination of grey and nature-based solutions. And I think when we talk about climate adaptation and trying to improve resilience, we're also looking at what people can do at a kind of a home level. So we have nature-based solutions and we have a better understanding of what they are. We've heard about property flood resilience, obviously SUDS, sustainable drainage systems. As a listener who's listening to this and thinking, well, I want to do something, but I want to do something in my power, what could that look like for a household?
So at a household level, there's a whole host of things you can sort of deploy and use to help alleviate those sort of pressures on your drainage system. So sort of look around your property. So have you got any green spaces that are currently sort of allowing water to just wash off? Have you got any grey spaces, car parking, little bits of footpath and things that just drain straight into a sort of a channel and then off into the sewer? Could you divert that into a rain garden? Could you put in things like water butts, which is a great solution, but it's storage of water. but that water butt can then help you to then maintain your garden during periods of drought. Because one of the things that we learned sort of last year with the quite severe droughts we had is just how bad the sort of water the sort of water deprivation can be, and how that impacts upon infiltration. So those really hard baked soils just absorb zero water. We think that as soon as water arrives, that nature will respond like we will, just gulp it down. It's not. That's not how it works. It's baked hard. It's like concrete. So as soon as that water comes off, it doesn't actually get into the soil. Doesn't really get in to where we want it. It flushes straight off very quickly into our rivers. So if we can maintain the good water storage and sort of water storage potential in our gardens, that's fantastic. That takes that pressure off the soil and the garden for when it does rain. But for those people who don't have gardens, there's still solutions in there available. Looking at your own water use, and say even if there's very little in your control, almost all water companies offer great solutions to reduce your water demand. And that reduction in water demand enables for better overall management of the water system and reduce pressure downstream.
Well, those are really good options for someone to pursue. But sometimes you may be concerned about rogue traders or not knowing what a good quality product is. So what kind of support is out there with regards to guidance and standards? So for example, you wanted to put in property flood resilience by yourself without having to pay designer or consultancy fees. What would someone be looking for in that scenario?
The first thing to look for is British standards wherever possible, and there is a property flood resilience British standard out there. There's trusted traders. There's things like the Property Care Association. There's a bit of research there to try and find out what the industry body is. Almost all industries have an industry body or a professional institute that they can sign up to, and having the companies, the suppliers that you choose be registered with them gives you confidence that actually they've gone through the right processes to meet the outputs. I think the other thing that is always sort of useful is natural research, but try and understand actually what you're wanting to get out of the products. Too often now we're sold a product that we don't use or we don't need. We sold it because it sounds really nice or good. A mobile phone being a fantastic example. We use a mobile phone for not much more than we did when it was a green screen Nokia 3310. Apart from navigation, we don't scratch below the surface of what it can do, but we know largely what we're buying. We're an informed purchaser. We need to become a bit more like that with the nature-based solutions, and not just looking at the product, but actually looking at where those professional institutes exist, what information they have. Because a lot of those will have explanations about things like property flood protection, sustainable drainage systems, and things like that you can gain an insight on and understand how it works. So then you're able to sort of ask the right questions, and you're able to make sure actually, what I'm wanting to deliver on my property in my area is what this product will do, rather than being sold a dream and only actually needing a very small part of what that product can achieve.
I've definitely seen it up in the Northeast on the back of an extreme or extraordinary event where you've had people knocking on people's doors saying we can give you a floodgate, or I think most recently even on social media you've got videos and saying, you see that tree over there, this is what could have happened if you'd had a barrier. But it's selling one particular product as opposed to a resilience package for a home, which is something completely different. So it's just looking at how we can help communities be better informed, but also street smart in being able to navigate what traditionally would be professional services, doing that kind of vetting for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, making sure that if we do have people doing we do have suppliers going and doing door knocking, and there's obviously some very, very bad practices that have gone on, but then there's also benefits of some of those things. I have known of, I ran a similar scheme and suppliers were knocking, and the suppliers actually being in the space helped those residents know that the framework was there. So making sure you get a couple of different quotes from different companies so you can understand what's gone on and what the sort of different offerings are. But yeah, recognising that often if you're doing this in response to a flood incident and you're sort of in that insurance battle, not just making a snap decision over the course of a couple of minutes, couple of hours, couple of days. A lot of time these grants will go on for several sort of months. Speak to the local authority, speak to whoever's running the grant scheme to understand whether they endorse anything, whether there's any products they've used, companies they've worked with that they have a good working relationship with and have good feedback from. But then, let's say, going into that discussion about the deployment or purchase of products, more informed, let's say, with a range of different suppliers, having offered you a solution for your property. And if there are discrepancies, find out why. Understand why certain things weren't recommended or why one approach was taken up versus another. Because some of those suppliers do vary as well. So a supplier might have access to different products. As you say, if people are supplying one barrier, they're going to push for that one barrier because that's what gets their sale. And they often run through that lens. And I think, if I was to be totally honest, I think as engineers and flood risk management professionals, we've been guilty of that in the past. So we talk about nature-based solutions. We've not used nature-based solutions for many, many years. We've defaulted to concrete, defaulted to the hard solutions because that's what we were comfortable with. That's what we've built before, and that's what we're happy to deliver.
You get that tangible model. You get that modelled metric, don't you? You get that you need so many cubic meters to store, and in a concrete box solution, you can get that volume, but you don't understand. You can't quantify the benefits that nature-based solutions give against it.
No, exactly that.
Yeah. So, Alex, moving back to nature-based solutions there. Obviously, we've talked about the upstream, the catchment element. Then we've talked about properties right down to the property level protection. Two key elements, I think, where nature-based solutions can be really important and really effective is firstly, a lot of the surface water generated is on things like public highway and the public realm, large hard standing areas, but also as well through new development as well. How can we use those two areas as opportunities to better protect ourselves from flooding using nature-based solutions?
I think highways is a very, very good example. There's not very many highways across the country that run purely up and down the river valley. Mm-hmm. There's one in the Calder, but very few locations just have a watercourse. A lot of our roads actually go across the valley. It's people needing to get from one side to the other. So those roads, those rivers provide great opportunities for better management of the crossing of the floodplain. But they also, as you say, provide that opportunity for blue-green corridors that crisscross our towns, our cities, our spaces, so that they can really better deploy that water. And where you've not got pipes and you've not got a pipe that's got to get into a gully or got into a manhole chamber, and then the only way it can get from one system to another is it surcharging, flooding a road, and then finding its way into a different system. With nature-based solutions, we can have a lot more interconnectivity. We can introduce that way of water moving around and balancing itself a lot better. Somewhat similar to our land drainage networks in the reclaimed areas of the country, the Wash, the Fens, the Humber, even Teesside, where we've reclaimed those areas of land, and the the water just balances out across a series of drains and networks. At the moment, if water doesn't do exactly what we designed it to do in an urban realm, it's causing flooding because there's no real backup. There's no fail-safe mechanism. There's no way for it to cascade elsewhere, which you have that opportunity with nature-based solutions. And I think on housing development, again, it's a blank canvas. And when we talked about that sort of property flood resilience element of people pushing their product, housing developers, infrastructure delivery partners are so guilty of using the same drag and drop method to deliver the solution.
Yeah, copy and
That
paste.
Yeah.
we often miss the opportunity to deliver something really inspiring for that area and for that community. And that's the biggest miss, because we could have truly inspiring developments, housing developments, spaces such as Helix in Newcastle, that the green space is interwoven and you're not far from greenery, and it just provides such a better environment for people. We forget that we are nature. We are part of nature. We evolved from nature. We still are nature. We're not, just because we think we can manage it and bend it to our will. We still have the same fundamental needs as almost any species on the planet. It's just that we've found a way to monopolise and destroy a lot more of them than the rest have.
Yeah, no, not great. Just on the subject of living with nature, nature-based solutions and NFM, we'll drill it down to NFM in particular. But one of the challenges often raised when we talk about natural flood management and nature-based solutions is the constraints around the long-term maintenance. So ownership and long-term maintenance. And I think it's one question we've come up on this a few times already. Two parts to this. The first part is, as industry, as policy makers, as people that can influence policy makers, and we can develop strategy, what would be a strategy to help nature-based solutions go to the next step, which is around living with them and taking care of them and essentially ensuring that they work in the way they're expected to. The second part is, what can we learn from other parts of the world that we can transfer into our society? Because I think part of the challenges with nature-based solutions, Carl, when we just say we defer to what we know, is because there's the perceived lesser risk, because we know how the life cycle works. We talk about the life cycle of a project is up to the day you have to essentially decommission. And there's a level of, when it comes to nature-based solutions, that later, the kind of living happily ever after, we don't know what to do with it. So how can we address that?
I'll start with the second part of the question first. So I think the best place we can go and learn from other parts of the world about how they sustainably deliver sort of nature-based solutions is really about going to some of our sort of more our indigenous communities and learning from them, because they've survived on that land for so long and thrived on that land for so long with using minimal interventions. They're not delivering capital schemes. They're continually chipping away and improving and refining their methods, their techniques, and their way of working with that system. It's not about all of a sudden a tribe or a group of people come together and go, right, we're coming here, we're doing a thing, and that's us. We're then just going to sit back and let the system work. And I think it's a folly for us to think that we can do something like that. It's just not going to happen. And as an industry, to go back to point one, that industry and that policy needs to look much more at how we can deliver over time and how we make sure we keep moving the ball forward. rather than just thinking about one big investment and then letting it just degrade over time. We wouldn't buy one really, really expensive grass cut or hedge cut and then thinking for the rest of our lives we're going to live in that house and the grass won't grow and the trees won't grow and the hedges won't grow. It's a folly. It works with concrete to a degree because it survives. But even when we look at things like rack, concrete doesn't last forever. Nothing lasts forever, and that build and forget mentality is just fundamentally wrong. And our industry and policy, and we need to help drive to ensure that actually we're not just thinking about the construction of it, whatever it is, but actually the long-term maintenance and making sure that it's still there and functioning as we intend for years to come. And nature-based solutions is a really, really good example of that because the initial outlay for nature-based solutions isn't necessarily that expensive. It doesn't have to be very, very, very expensive. It can be much cheaper than the equivalent of sort of concrete and traditional measures. But you have to maintain it. You have to keep chipping away, keep improving, keep control of it, and keep making sure it's performing as intended. It's not just a dump it and forget. And that mentality is something we need to work on. And Carl and a lot of colleagues at local authority, they'll know that the designers are often the devil, and actually it's the asset managers who are the real heroes of the day because they're working with all of the problems that the designers built in, and then they're trying to work with no money because the capital team spent it.
Yeah, and I think as well a lot of assets have been built, particularly older assets, where we're getting events that are exceeding their design capacity as well, and then you're left with this balance when you're already trying to reduce asset management costs and revenue costs on, you know, what do we do? Do we improve what we've got, or do we wholesale replace it with something completely new? And you know, every local authority in the country are having these discussions and these debates. And
is it part of it though? Is it part of it? Let me just rein this train back in. Is it part of it that when it comes to securing funding, that it is probably more advantageous to build new? Yeah. The way the system works.
Yeah. A lot of the way the national framework is built is for capital schemes. It's for new works. It's for betterment. But ultimately, if that money could be spent improving or repairing a lot of existing features, there could be
that's what we're talking about, systematic change though. So if the metric itself was more balanced, then there's the opportunity to probably pursue investment for maintenance as opposed to default to the norm, which is just pursue new capital investment.
Yeah, totally. And you know, a lot of things in the past, and invest to save. So you know, things where you invest to save on your maintenance costs. That can work well in some environments, but not all.
And still limiting.
Yeah, absolutely. What someone once gave me an example of at the moment the current approach to addressing these problems is like buying a new carpet rather than hoovering it.
Yeah.
And rather than keeping it clean.
Yeah.
You buy this new outfit. The whole system's geared to the purchase of a new carpet, and the purchase of a new capital investment, something you have to save up for or pay off on finance. And then you wait, and then you do another investment, another big investment, big chunk of money comes through, and we don't operate ourselves like that. We hoover the carpet, we take the car for servicing when we remember. We do all of these things which are designed to keep our products, our assets going, rather than just one big investment and then we never buy it again. Because by that chalk, no one would ever be able to afford to start, because we just have to buy everything when we suddenly venture out into the world from parents or guardians and from that house. and go and find something new and spend it all. Everything then lasts us forever. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Also, don't you think that you spend so long waiting for the capital investment, by the time you've put it in, it's probably already out of date? Because the new date, something else has happened.
Climate
that
change
has
allowances have changed, or
take a medium-term project, for example. It takes you 5 years to get there.
Yeah.
And even if the design parameters are the same, and then it probably takes another 2-3 years to build it, by that point, what's happened with climate change?
You've probably had a different event for a high return period. From
You've built something in a situation that's 8 years out of date. And I think that's part of the challenge, isn't it? That the change is happening much quicker than a number of frameworks, including how we fund projects, happens.
Yeah.
And I think the other element to sort of add to that is and it's right, the due diligence we're putting around the spending of public money is resulting in so much more expenditure of public money to get the public money that it's locking us into just a cycle of continuing to pay. Say having the need for so many business cases, design evolutions, stage gateways in projects, those sort of processes just elongate the project so much further, and result in spend at a dribble rate throughout, and then we get to build and cancelling it.
Building on that, no pun intended. When we go through this process for capital projects, we go through the value engineering stage, okay? And how often do you think we are losing wider benefits through the value engineering stage? We might have produced something there that's a nice open swale or pond that gives a lot of ecology and biodiversity, but because we're looking at flood risk, we might engineer that out, or value engineer that out. How much do you think nature-based solutions are impacted by value engineering? Could we have naturally been incorporating nature-based solutions into our projects for years, but it's been value engineered out?
Absolutely. The current funding model and the way we get funding for flood risk management schemes, any scheme, does not lend itself to nature-based solutions, because there's no nature-based solutions government department, or no nature government department that can claim all these benefits and can claim all these things. There's no end recipient of them, and a lot of the time the investment is quite a way down the line. So if we go and put nature-based solutions across Newcastle and across any city or town, the benefits are often mental health, they're often physical health, because people are getting out. It's reduced heat stress, reduced sort of water pressure, all of these demands. But the benefits are spread so wide that no one ends up wanting to fund the whole thing. And there's no real way, there's very, very difficult ways to leverage a lot of those pots to deliver. I was once involved in a project, and I won't say where or with who, but there was 5 to 10 partners involved, and the outcomes that we were wanting and the investment that was required was about 100 grand, maybe slightly more, maybe slightly less. But because no one could put their fence around it and say, this is my bit that I own, this is the outcome that's mine, and I can take back to my sort of stakeholders, my steering groups, etc., my project boards, it didn't get funding. It was never delivered. The benefits for £10,000 of investment would have been staggering.
Yeah.
A huge return on investment. But because it's so fragmented that no one was able to then stump up the cash, get a lot of people to benefit and no one wants to pay. It's that crabs in a bucket scenario. You can't let no crab lets another crab out. Everyone keeps pulling themselves down and sticking in the bucket.
So how do we change that? What's the solution to something like that?
I think the only place that can be addressed is policy around funding. Almost all the funding that we use for the big projects, the projects that we're really talking about, comes out of the public purse. it comes from one place, just the Treasury, but it's split up and divided out into various different pots, and then no one wants to give back out of their pot when they're not necessarily seeing everything at once. So it needs to come from Treasury to have this strategy, this integration of delivery. There's initiatives such as the nature recovery networks, biodiversity net gain, and other initiatives that are coming forward. I think the nature recovery networks is potentially a game changer in that, because it's got these sort of steering groups and these partners around the table. And if we can work with the infrastructure bank to help create a wider outcomes focus, we can start to leverage those benefits. But until we start thinking about the system as a whole and using sort of systems thinking and systems approaches to understand and value those benefits across the piece, we're just not going to realise them. The system, the funding mechanism, the capital system is designed for one person to solve one problem. National highways to solve a traffic problem, for Network Rail to solve a rail problem.
Yeah. So it's collaboration, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. It's, until we find a way to sort of deliver and leverage that those core benefits, we're just not going to realise it. I don't think.
No. Well, you're right, Alex, and obviously a lot of work we've done with the NIDP, Northumbrian Integrated Drainage Partnership, is to encourage that collaboration between risk management authorities. And I feel like, you've referenced Highways England and Network Rail there. We really need to start working more with those bigger players, for asset owners to lead by example right across the board. So yeah. So
yeah, and that's not to poo-poo them. They want to deliver green solutions, and I think this is the biggest frustration, is that everyone does want to deliver more nature-based solutions and more greenery.
Yeah,
but we're hamstrung by the regulations across the board, and everyone's sort of looking, going, "I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't." And that dialogue I hear almost daily. In my professional life, it's constant, and in my work with Area of Trust as a trustee, it's just a constant sort of tick over of we're not getting what we need, we can't do it because the system. Let's change the system. It was only words on paper.
Change the system. Yeah,
it's not just me saying that.
Yeah, that's Meshi's new tagline: change the system. There we are. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that, Alex.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, Alex. Thank you.
It's been amazing sitting down with you. You're with
good.
me. I said change the system as well.
I think that's the thing I said. I remember I presented at Sniffer last year or early this year, and one of the key things, I think one of the most important things I said was we've got to be brave, and be brave, change the system, and create the future we want. Let's not look at reasons and excuses of why we can't. Let's look at what we want and what we can do and look forward.
And I think the fact you've said you were at Sniffer there, which is obviously a Scottish flood expo, I feel Scotland are a bit ahead of the curve on flood risk management than England probably is, and we could learn a lot from that.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think in no small part because Scotland views their flood risk management spend as investments and not reducing damage.
Yeah.
They look and go, should we invest in the flood risk management scheme for X, Y, or Z town, city, community? And it's about what they can realise with that flood alleviation scheme, the flood risk management scheme. Whereas in England, we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot by just focusing on only a certain proportion of what we spend can we use, or what the benefits can we use based on what we already have. And I think one of the key things that Leeds City Council and the Leeds Flood Alleviation Scheme has shown is that You can fund a flood alleviation scheme based on regeneration and the opportunity that provides.
Creates, yeah.
That scheme has unlocked the South Bank.
Yeah.
And it's been a combination of works by Leeds City Council, by West Yorkshire Combined Authority, the Environment Agency, Mott MacDonald, Arup, BAM, a whole host of partners. The list just keeps going on, but it's about making something of the scheme and making the most for Leeds, not about going, we've got 3 houses or 1,000 houses that flood, therefore we can only claim 1-to-8 ratio benefits.
Absolutely, yeah. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and I'll see you
soon.
soon.
It's been a pleasure, yeah. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Right.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Alex. Bye.
Thank you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the PGN podcast today. We hope you found it informative and enjoyable. If you did, please like and subscribe to the podcast. But also, please, if you find this useful to anyone else, pass it on and spread the word.
To find out more about Project Groundwater Northumbria, please visit www.pgn.org.uk.